On this edition of Native Report, we visit Onji-Akiing from the Earth Natural Resource Summer Camp for Native American youth.
We hike through a Wisconsin forest to the Thunderbird Panel and learn about the significance of this rock art.
Then we travel to the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin and meet tribal historian and Elder Loretta Metoxen.
And we learn what we can do to lead healthier lives and hear from our elders on this edition of Native Report.
Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Shakopee-Mdewakanton Sioux community, the Blandin Foundation, and the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation.
Welcome to Native Report. I'm Ernie Stevens.
And I'm Rita Aspinwall. There are so many summer camps for parents to choose from for their children. Camp Onji-Akiing is a summer camp where Native American youngsters explore potential careers in natural resources. It's a collaboration between the Great Lakes Fish and Wildlife Commission and the United States Forest Service.
Nestled among the old-growth forest on Michigan's Upper Peninsula is Camp Onji-Akiing. This camp is like any other with many activities for Native youth to take part in, but it is much more than that.
We have a cultural camp. It's called Unji-Akiing. Unji-Akiing means from the earth. We started in 2009 with 9 kids, and it's grown. Now we have paid staff, we have junior counselors, kids that were campers that want to come back every year and be mentors to our younger campers. So we have a full staff now of, I think, 92. Also, Unji-Akiing partners with the Forest Service. So Glyphwick partners with the Forest Service to bring this camp. It's a collaborative effort. The mission of Camp Unji-Akiing is to create or help to foster this youth leadership network. We started this camp in hopes to foster connections to the culture and through traditional ecological knowledge to get these kids to pursue natural resource careers and to go back into their communities and strengthen those roles.
I've always wanted to go to a camp in my younger years, and back in the day we just didn't have an opportunity, didn't even know this was available. We started off with 9 kids from Lac du Flambeau, and then established it to what it is today. 50 plus kids today, a variety of kids from different tribes, not just all Chippewa tribes, Menominee, Oneida. It doesn't matter, it's providing that service for our youth. What we're trying to achieve here is to accomplish something bigger and better so that these young people and these young men and women can be leaders in the future.
Campers explore natural resource careers and Native American treaty rights while building leadership and environmental stewardship skills. It's not uncommon for campers to return the next year, and for some of them, they may even return as counselors.
I came here in 2009, basically that's when it all started pretty much. And I didn't want to go away. I was always dependent on my parents and family. And it was a weird feeling being away from them for a week. I never was really that far away. This is going to be year 7 now. I was a camper for 3 years, until I came into high school and became a junior counselor. This year I'm a counselor too, it's my 2nd year. This camp has really showed me that I could be more independent on myself, and showed me that it led me on the right path to what I want to be. And I started wanting to be more in the criminal justice side. And I found that Glyphwick has an enforcement division, which made me want to be more of a game warden. So I'm working towards game warding and conservation officer type of field.
This camp provides a lot of opportunities, like our career fair. There are colleges that come here and it's really helpful. And Glyphwick, because I go to this camp and I'm so involved with them, I'm looking for their internships when I'm 18. You meet kids and you don't want to leave them, and you just hope you see them next year. It gives you the extra push and the boost of confidence. Like, you get one thing done at camp that you didn't think you could. Like, the boys are making their own drumsticks, the girls are making their own chokers. It taught me to get more involved in my community.
The activities for the campers range from team building exercises, doing the ropes course, to fishing and archery. More culturally relevant activities are learning canoe safety when harvesting wild rice, constructing a drum, and choker making.
It's been really fun so far. One of my favorite activities is archery. Another one of my favorites, tied with archery, is fishing. I've also learned of safety skills with a canoe, and recently today I learned how to use a pole for wild ricing. So whenever I get the chance to learn something new, I'll always take it.
When my mom first told me that it was like an outdoor camp up in the UP, I was already hooked. Ojibwe is not my tribe, and this is mainly Ojibwe related, but I always enjoy learning more about ancestors in the past, and I've learned that similar traits from both Ojibwe and Wyandot, my tribe. Just from the elders of my tribe, I've compared and contrasted, and I've learned that these tribes are pretty close, being in the Northeast.
I think we see the success in our camp because we keep getting more interest every year for kids that want to come. I mean, they come here and it's a family, and we treat it like a family. We eat family-style meals. We take turns cleaning. We take turns supporting each other, whether it's, leadership or team building things where some kid's scared and wants to go home, and other kids just kind of swarm in that don't know this child and accept them into their, their circle.
When we were growing up, my grandmother was a language teacher, and she had said that there was very little books on tradition and knowledge. It was all by talking and speaking and doing it. And that's one of the things that this camp is doing, is it's providing hands-on experiences that Chippewa and other nations that we do as we build things, we make things, we cherish those things. This year we're making a drum for the camp. We're making bigger and better things for these kids to say, hey, I have a handprint in this camp, and I want to come back when I'm 30 years old and see where that drum is. And if a kid shakes my hand saying I made a difference for him, that's just one person that I can say I did just like my father did for me.
A transient ischemic attack, or TIA, is like a stroke and produces similar symptoms, but usually resolves in a few minutes and does not cause permanent damage. TIAs are often called mini-strokes and may be a warning sign of a stroke in the future. Approximately 1 in 3 who have a TIA will go on to have a stroke, with about half occurring in the year after the TIA. A TIA is a scary event, but it can also be seen as a warning and an opportunity to take steps to prevent a stroke from happening in the future. Transient ischemic attacks usually last a few minutes and clear within an hour. The signs and symptoms are the same as a stroke, and they come out of the blue and happen suddenly. The symptoms can include numbness, weakness, or paralysis on one side of your face, arm, leg, or body, slurred or garbled speech, blindness in one or both eyes, double vision, inability to balance, difficulty with coordination, and sudden severe headache with no cause. TIAs can happen again and can sometimes be in the same area of the brain, or can happen in a different area, and this will have different symptoms of the ones previously listed. A transient ischemic attack is caused by a clot that forms in a blood vessel in the brain and blocks blood flow to that part of the brain. Each part of the brain has specific functions, and those will be affected by the clot. With a stroke, the clot is permanent and the symptoms don't go away. With a TIA, the clot only lasts a short time, then dissolves, and the symptoms resolve before any permanent damage is done. The cause is the same for strokes and TIAs, and means the blood vessels in the brain are narrowed and plugged by cholesterol plaques. The plaque cracks and a clot forms in that area. Sometimes a clot can form somewhere else, most commonly the heart, and travel through the blood vessels until it comes to a narrow spot and lodges there and blocks flow. Changing the risk factors once you have had a TIA is important. Some of them, like family history, age, race, and sex, you cannot change. There are many risks you can do something about, and these include poorly controlled diabetes, a physically inactive lifestyle, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, illicit drug or alcohol use, and a diet high in fats and salt. Birth control pills can increase the risks in some women. I bet you thought I was going to forget about smoking. Not this time. Non-traditional tobacco use is a major risk factor for strokes and TIAs. A TIA and a stroke are very hard to tell apart, and if you get any of the symptoms, you need to call 911. Going to the hospital by ambulance can save an hour because the ambulance crew is in contact with the hospital and they can be ready to open a blocked blood vessel as soon as you get there. Driving yourself in is dangerous, and time is lost when you show up at the emergency department without warning. Transient ischemic attacks are scary, but they resolve. Strokes are permanent, and the road to recovery is long and difficult, and not everyone regains function. A TIA is a warning and an opportunity to avoid a stroke, and prevention is your best bet. Remember to call an elder. They've been waiting for your call. I'm Dr. Arnie Vinio, and this is Health Matters.
Native people have made their presence known across Indian country in the form of petroglyphs and pictographs, otherwise known as rock art. Deep in what is known as the driftless area of Wisconsin is an outcrop of rock, and on this rock face are etched thunderbirds. Join us now as we learn about the Thunderbird Panel. The forest canopy provides just enough shade from the midday sun as we hike through the forest in Juneau County, Wisconsin. Our guide today is former Ho-Chunk Nation President Cloris Lowe, an amateur archaeologist who is leading us to a most remarkable place.
We're at a site today that is very special to me personally and to my family, and obviously to many other people within the nation. This particular site is located on the edge of the driftless area in Wisconsin. The driftless area covers actually 4 states, primarily Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, and northwestern Illinois. This site here really doesn't have a name, but I call this the Thunderbird Panel. This is a place that in this entire system of cliffs and valleys, this is the only area that really shows birds that have been carved into the rock and the rock faces here.
Petroglyphs, or rock art, can be found all throughout Indian country. Whoever etched the thunderbirds and other markings into the soft sandstone of the bluff is a complete mystery. An even bigger mystery is, what do they mean?
Petroglyphs, rock art like this, is very hard, if not almost impossible to date, with a few rare exceptions. These are at least 1,000 years old, and they may be thousands of years old. As I take a look at rock art like this, I take a look at what potentially were the stories that were being left by the people that created this. This wasn't all created at one time. It's always wonderful to be able to sit back and look at sites like this and try to internalize what may have come here before us. But to understand that we're taking a look at the work of our ancestors, of the people here that preceded us, and that it's still visible today, and that it's a story that they're, I believe, trying to transmit. What that story is specifically, I don't know, but I do know when I take a look at all of the Thunderbirds that are on here, all of the Sky Clan images that are here, these are the people that were here. Well, as a member of the Sky Clan, when I take a look at this, in our oral history, and we talk about our creation and the creation stories that we have, they're not just stories and they're not myths. It's something that we believe in. Back at one point in time, the Thunderbirds hunted men. They hunted Ho-Chunks. They were to be feared. But there was a point in time where one man was protected by a Thunderbird, His name was Red Horn in our history, in our oral history. But it's the story of Red Horn and how the Thunderbird came down to protect him from the other Thunderbirds and from the other dangers in his life. And it's at that point, in my understanding, that we as Ho-Chunk people came not to fear the Thunderbirds, but rather to respect them because they were our protectors. When I see these, I understand when there's huge storms and there's lightning. My grandmother always said to me, "Don't be afraid of that. This is when you are at your strongest." It's the lightning from the Thunderbird that's coming down that gives us energy in the earth, that gives us power.
There are other markings and graffiti on the wall face, plus leftover plaster from state archaeologists who have surveyed the site throughout the years. But this only further illustrates the importance of preserving sites such as the Thunderbird Panel.
There's a couple of other images here in this rock art that you will see that look like geometric patterns. These are the same images that I see that are 1,500 miles away in deep canyons of the Southwest. There's a rectangle up there. Why is that there? And why is it in Arizona and New Mexico and Utah and Colorado identical? It forces me at least to understand that there was a lot of shared knowledge throughout what we now call the United States. One of the things you'll see when you look at this rock art panel here, aside from the petroglyphs that are here, you'll see a tremendous amount of graffiti. It's something that when I take a look at it, I get a hollow pit in my stomach. It makes me feel bad. What protects a great many of these sites is that their locations are not shared to the general public. I think sacred is a word that's perhaps overused a lot today, but I would consider this to be in many ways a sacred site because of our people that are here. All Native peoples, our ancestors, the people that preceded us here to this world, as we see it today, they were here and they left this for us. And I think it's good for us to think about that and then to internalize that. And maybe that's the message that they're leaving, is this is important. This is a part of who you are. This is a part of who we are as a people. We were here at one time, and we know people will follow us into the future. And we're leaving this for you to contemplate, to work with, and to understand what's important in life.
What advice do you give to your grandchildren, great-grandchildren these days?
Well, I have 6 grandchildren, and now I have 6 great-grandchildren. And we're raising them to be, Indian, to be traditional in our spirituality, and because you have to have that, and then also though to be able to exist and get along in the non-Indian world, and but the heart is who we are as Indian people. That's the strength. I truly believe that we've got to go back to our culture and our values, and that's why we have a lot of our young people floundering. Used to be, there were systems in place that kept young people, from, doing drugs or from acting out, but those systems are fleeting with our loss of our culture. And that's really just what disturbs me.
Loretta Metoxen is a respected elder and tribal historian for the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. She was born and raised on the Oneida Reservation and served in tribal leadership for nearly 30 years. Loretta stays quite active in her position as tribal historian, and a day doesn't go by without her learning something new about the Oneida Nation.
The Oneida Nation of Wisconsin has a long and storied history. Loretta Metoxen, the keeper of that knowledge, looks after the nation's history with a passion.
Tribal historian is very exciting. I use what knowledge I have gained over the last 60, 70 years to enrich other people by teaching, researching, writing, spreading any kind of information that I might have about laws that affect tribes, especially this tribe. I study every day and I learn something new every day. It's a miracle that we are here at all, because we survived the Revolutionary War, where many of our men were killed. The women also fought in the Revolutionary War. And after the war, quickly on the heels of the war, came the Indian Removal Act. And President Jackson was bound that all the tribes east of the Mississippi were going west, and we were one of them. So history, all of that detail of daily living for our ancestors is really, really exciting. It's more exciting than anything you can get on TV, as far as I'm concerned.
Born and raised on the Oneida Reservation, Loretta served in the U.S. Air Force during the Korean War.
I'm an Oneida woman who was raised on a farm here on the reservation, and I volunteered for the United States Air Force when I was 18 years old. The United States Air Force saw fit to put me in airborne radar school, airborne radar technician school. After a year, when I got my orders, it said Buzzards Bay, Massachusetts, and I thought, oh my gosh, where is Buzzards Bay, Massachusetts? I thought it would be the end of the earth, and I didn't know it was Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and that's where I was sent, and I was a sergeant on the flight line there, in charge of all the airborne radar on 2 flights of planes, the 58th and the 59th Fighter Squadrons.
Loretta also served on the Oneida Business Committee, the governing body of the Oneida Nation, for nearly 30 years. While on the council, she strongly disagreed with the passage of the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, a major piece of legislation that affected all of Indian country.
There were 2 other major leaders who opposed that act, and those were Roger Jourdain and Wendell Chino. And they said, and I agreed with them, didn't affect anything, but they said it was unconstitutional. And I agreed with them because of the Commerce Clause in the United States Constitution that says only the United States will deal in commerce with the tribes. Well, this law gave the control, the regulation to the respective states. So that is the part that is unconstitutional. I believe it yet today.
Loretta does recognize the positive economic impact the piece of legislation has had across Indian country. But her focus now is on the history and retention of the Oneida culture. It could be argued that she herself is a treasure of the nation.
My hopes for the future of the Oneida Nation are that 17,100 Oneidas, they need to know this stuff. They need to know where they came from. They need to know the hardships that their grandparents survived through, and that's why they're still here. That's what they need to know so that they can help one another, contribute to the nation. They need to know that because each one who contributes will make the nation stronger to that extent. So that's what I think needs to happen. It can't happen fast enough.
For more information about Native Report or the stories we've covered, look for us on the web at nativereport.org, on Facebook, and on Twitter.
Thank you for spending this time with your friends and neighbors in Indian Country. I'm Ernie Stevens.
And I'm Rita Aspinwall. Join us next time for another Native Report.
Rita Aspinwall is an enrolled member of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, and is an ICWA social worker with Fond du Lac Social Services. Ernie Stevens is a member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin and is a film and television producer. Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Shakopee-Mdewakanton Sioux Community, the Blandin Foundation, and the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation.